Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. In this episode we'll make some wholemeal ciabatta. Why wholemeal? I don't know, why not? Tastes delicious. And if you want to see a video for a regular white ciabatta or sourdough ciabatta, click the link in top right corner. I've got videos to cover all your ciabatta needs and more. Well, you can't go wrong with this one. I mean, look at it. The holes speak for themselves. And you can top them with whatever you like. They taste delicious with anything. So if you want to learn how to make these beauties, keep watching. And as always, you'll find all the details with metric and imperial units down in the description box. So first up, let's see what equipment we need. Ideally, you want to use a thick solid pan for baking, but a tray will do as well. Then you need a bowl, scales, dough scraper, temperature probe, and a thick cloth. A lint-free tea towel will do. Now onto the ingredients, which are very basic. Wholemeal flour, strong white bread flour, some water, yeast and salt, and a little bit of olive oil. That's all. Now the first step is to make a pre-ferment, which is called a poolish. We want to ferment half of the total flour ahead of time. This will improve the flavor, the texture and the keeping quality of our breads. Now my kitchen is quite warm, so I'm using cold water because I don't want this to ferment too quickly. I only need a tiny pinch of yeast. This is enough. Now because we are using two types of flour, we will pre-ferment half of each of them. So half of the total wholemeal flour and half of the total white flour. And once everything's in a bowl, just give it a good mix until you don't see any more dry flour. Then we'll cover it up and leave it to ferment. I know that in a warm kitchen, using cold water, this should not take more than 10 to 12 hours in total. So normally leave it overnight. It should definitely double in size and be full of air. Now it's the next day and we can continue on with making the dough. Add the rest of the water, the olive oil, add the yeast, then add the salt and give it all a good mix. Mix everything well until it's nice and smooth. And again, I'm using slightly cool water at 20 degrees Celsius because my kitchen is quite warm. Right, once we mix that, add the rest of the flour. And once again, mix until combined. You want to mix this until you don't see any more dry flour. Now tip your dough out on the table when you start kneading it. This dough is quite wet, sticky and stretchy, so we'll use a stretch and fold method for kneading it. To perform a stretch and fold, pick the dough up by one side, stretch it against the table towards yourself and fold it over, and repeat. This is the best way of tackling a very sticky dough by hand. Now if you want to count it, you need to do 400 to 500 turns. I know it may sound like a lot, but it doesn't take more than 10 minutes or so. And don't worry if it sticks to your hands. Do not add any flour. Just keep kneading it and it will get less and less sticky as you go along. Just scrape it up from the table using your scraper once in a while. Or you can wet your hands with water once in a while if you feel that it's really sticky. The best way to handle a sticky dough is by working quickly and with a light touch. And as you can see 10 minutes later, it's come together nicely, it's nice and stretchy, and it's ready to be proved. I have to add, I'm using wet hands to handle the dough so it doesn't stick. Always take the temperature after mixing. 24 to 25 degrees C is just about right for this. Now cover it up, leave it to ferment for 30 minutes. If your dough is cooler or warmer, then you need to adjust the proofing time up or down. This dough is quite loose, so we need to fold it to give it extra strength. So after the first 30 minutes, wet your hands, pick the dough up by the middle, release it from the bowl, and then roll it underneath itself. And then turn the bowl and repeat. This is called a coil fold because you are rolling the dough up in a coil shape. This folding will create more layers in the gluten structure, making the dough stronger. You're also degassing the dough by folding and equalizing the temperature in it. So folding has many benefits. But the main purpose for this dough is to create those extra layers and make it stronger. So we'll cover it up, we'll leave it to proof for another 30 minutes. And after the second proof, we'll give it another fold. I'll show you another angle of the fold. You can see the dough is proofing already nicely. It's nice and wobbly. So once again, wet your hands, pick the dough up, release it from the bowl, and roll it underneath itself. And then just turn the bowl and repeat on the other side. You'll feel it getting tighter and tighter in your hands. It's worth noting that every subsequent fold should be performed more gently than the previous one. You don't want to knock out any of the fermentation gases that have been accumulated. So cover the dough up, we'll leave it to proof for another 30 minutes. Look at that rise, it has at least doubled in size since we begun. Now it's shaping time. Shaping ciabatta is very easy. Make sure everything's well dusted with flour. Dust your dough all over, dust the table, then release the dough from the bowl and place it down on the floured surface. Don't worry about having too much flour now because we can shake it off later. The main point is not to have it sticking to anything. We'll divide these into 4, that's why I sprinkled a cross of flour on top of the dough, which will help with cutting. And now just use the dough scraper to cut it to size. So if you think about it, ciabatta is one of the easiest breads to make. Because there's no pre-shaping and final shaping stage, all we need to do is divide it, and that's it. The ciabatta's done. And now comes in the tea towel. I'll show you how to use it. I would suggest placing it on a tray. It will make it easier to move around if need be. In bakeries they use a thick linen cloth called a couche, on which breads like ciabattas and baguettes are proofed on. We will proof the ciabattas in rows by separating them using a crease in the towel. It's important to flour the cuts in the dough so they don't stick. And now lift the towel up at either end, create a crease, and this will separate the dough from each other. Then dust the rest of the cloth and repeat. And however many you are making, just keep creating creases, keep separating the dough, and at the end, dust everything with flour, wrap it up, and we can leave them to proof for the final time. They should not take more than 30 to 45 minutes of proofing. And during the final proof, we can preheat the oven to 230 degrees C without the fan, and also preheat your baking vessel. And look at that, after the final proof, they have puffed up real nice. Now at this point you really want to handle them gently. Get your hot pan out, make sure to not burn your table, and lift these bad boys in gently. Try to avoid using your fingertips when handling dough like this. Try to use the flat part of your finger or the palms of your hands more, because it's very easy to distort dough like this. Because I can only fit 2 ciabattas in the oven at once, I'll place the rest in the fridge so they don't overproof. To get the first batch in, they should not take more than 15 to 18 minutes of baking. And look at that, they look really nice, don't they? And now if you think you have too much flour on, just shake it off, bang the bread against the pan, and the excess flour will fall off. But we need to cook the rest, don't we? So let's get these on a rack to cool down. And whilst the pan is still hot, quickly brush off any of the excess flour, and we get the rest of the ciabattas out of the fridge, straight into the pan, and back in the oven. Now if you have a larger pan or a larger tray, by all means bake them all at once. But in any case, once they're all done, leave them on the rack to cool down. And that's your wholemeal ciabatta. Quite easy, right? But as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, drop them down in the comments. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I make bread baking videos every Wednesday and Sunday. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.